All right, so this is Town Council Meeting 11-26. It is Tuesday, June 2nd, 2026 at 6 p.m. We are at 30 Main Street in Freeport, Maine. Our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right. Next, we will move on to our roll call to see who is here. Councillor Sparta.
Here.
Councillor Lawrence.
Here.
Councillor Filch.
Here.
Councillor Brown.
I'm here.
Councillor Smith.
Present.
Councillor Benoit is here, and Councillor Pillsbury will be here later on.
No,
He will not be.
no.
I did not know that.
Yeah, no, he texted us.
Thank you for that. Sorry, Matt. All right. Our next order of business is to waive the reading and accept as printed the May 19th, 2026 meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Yes, sir. Next, we will move on to announcements. I have a few. So regular absentee voting for the June 9th state primary and municipal election is available now until June 4th at 6 p.m. There are special limited circumstances where a voter may still receive an absentee ballot through Election Day. Please contact the clerk's office for details. Sunday, June 7th, so this coming Sunday, from noon to 2 is the community barbecue hosted by Town Council in Memorial Park. We have received several resignation letters from volunteers on our various boards and committees, so please contact us if you have any interest or talents to contribute to the following committees that have one vacancy. So the Board of Appeals, Board of Assessment Review, Coastal Water Commission, Cable Advisory, Freeport Sustainability Advisory Board, Library Board of Trustees, the Planning Board, Shellfish Commission, and the Police Advisory Student Representatives. We have 2 spots for those. Please contact the clerk's office if you are interested in applying. We will be accepting applications for the 2026 to 27 commercial shellfish lottery from Monday, June 1st to Monday, June 15th. We have 3 resident commercial, 1 non-resident commercial, and 1 non-resident student commercial available. The shellfish lottery will be held June 17th at 10 a.m. at Town Hall and is open to the public for viewing. Winslow Park is now open for the season and accepting camping reservations. Any other announcements from the council? All right. So we will move on to our information exchange. This is an opportunity for counselors to share information about town-related interactions and engagement, including updates from liaison activities and committee meetings. Before I share my information, do we have any? Councilor Brown.
I'm reporting on as the liaison to the Freeport Sustainability Advisory Board, which met last Wednesday. We had a discussion about the invasives, the new invasives task force, and learned that their efforts will center on education and demonstrations. They will have actual demonstration projects, and I think have chosen one, actually. The biggest obstacle, it seems, to this effort will be disposal. And they are using a mapping app called IMAP Invasives, which helps locate actual locations to focus on. The group is working on identifying climate action goals for the coming year and making some progress in that area. And I just want to report back that the group understands that the Skip the Stuff Green Restaurant program will be educational in nature, and that the council supports the effort, but doesn't favor an ordinance in that area. So that pretty much sums up the meeting, I think.
Great.
Thanks.
Anything else?
No, update, we had an ordinance meeting yesterday. We had a spirited discussion about firearm discharge, but ultimately decided not to do, or that we couldn't do anything about the noise from the discharge. We also talked about aligning the program or the noise ordinance with construction equipment and when home users use it, that kind of thing, so it matches what everyone's doing. And we're going to tweak the lighting ordinance, or we directed the town manager to look into what we can do there.
Great. Thank you. Last week was the Greater Portland Council of Governments Annual Summit, which I attended with our development director and our communications director. I don't know if we shared this, but Freeport, we won the Housing Champions Award, which was very exciting. Also, Maine Ocean Farms, who is located in Freeport's waters, they received the Sustainability Award. So it was a big day for Freeport. Yeah, it was great. Communications was kind of the topic of the day, which I thought was appropriate as we are almost ready to share the communication plans with council, from what I hear from Sophie. There was also discussion around a local options tax and appetite to pursue that. And I certainly learned that we can and probably should utilize our membership with GP Cogmore. They do just about everything, so we should keep that in our back pocket. And I also, on the list, we have, I'll start with the cookout. So as we mentioned during the announcements, our cookout with council is on June 7th from 12 to 2. I think we discussed that counselors who are available will start setup or support setup around 11, as long as that supports what staff needs. And I know I will probably do some outreach to other community groups I'm involved with this week, and I asked you all to do the same. For Memorial Day, I know there was some disappointment that we weren't able to host our usual events. In speaking with staff following up, there's some effort going on to try and figure out how we can more effectively move it indoors in the future. Caroline, would you like to share? Yeah.
So traditionally on Memorial Day, we have a parade which has a lot of our youth groups, some of the bands at our local schools, and a few community members. And then we have a ceremony in the park, which many of them participate in. Joyce and the Legion participate in, and a couple other local individuals. This year, due to the weather, we canceled the event. This is my second year. There's never been mention of a rain location, and that's because the town of Freeport, due to some logistical challenges with using other locations, has not planned for a rain location. That being said, we heard how the community felt about that, and some would like the show to go on. So we have been in conversations with the RSU, and their thought is that we could plan for a contingency plan to use the gym in the future. We would probably need more hands on deck to help out. So I'm hoping that maybe we can bring that to Special Projects Committee and work with the RSU to come up with a plan. And I see Eric smiling, and Ken, they love that idea. So I think we can have a rain plan that we can have on file and make a reservation if that's the desire of the council and the community. We've already started those conversations.
I just want to thank you for taking such quick action on that. That was definitely something we heard consistently from the community, and it's great to have a plan already in motion. So thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah. All right, any other information to share before I hand it off? Councilor Smith.
I will just say that I did have a conversation with a constituent yesterday when that person was here to vote early, which has been brisk. So I want to thank the clerk's office for keeping on top of all of the requests for those early voting ballots. And the concern was about the arrangement of the voting districts in Freeport. And I think that's a conversation that we have had before. But the concern particularly was that, if you have somebody who lives on the edge of a district, they may not know all of the things and the concerns that are happening throughout or on the other side of the district. In looking at the district map, it is conceivable, since all four districts have portions on the west side of 295, that you could have an entire council that lived on the west side of town. Unlikely, so I just share that. We rebalance the district based on voters. We have to have the same number of voters as much as possible in each of the districts. We do that about every 5 years, but I just mentioned that that's a concern that we do hear from time to time.
Thank you. All right, well, with that, I will hand it off to Mary Davis and Tani Whitney for our quarterly update from the Freeport Economic Development Corporation.
That one? Okay. Good evening. Thank you. You know that we love to be here for our quarterly updates. And this time, Tani has championed me to sit. So I am sitting and staying. So thank you so much. It's great to be here. We love to bring you the quarterly updates and let you know what we're up to, where we're going. So first I want to start, though, with our strength is in working together. And I hope that you, as counselors, I hope that the citizens have seen that really over the last months, we're seeing that it's working. We're hearing it from new businesses that are coming to town about how working together with the town has been so much easier. We're hearing it from, we did some listening sessions. We heard it from people at the listening sessions. So it's so nice to see that all the work that we have put into working together is actually working for us. And I think that, some of our bringing people to town can be really complicated. And there's always hairballs that occur when you're trying to bring people in. And so I think the thought process, the sophistication of how we're trying to work together to make sure ordinances are in place and such, is really separating us from other towns. And we've heard that from some of the people who have come here, that they've chosen to come to us because, can you believe it? It's easier to be here. Isn't that nice to hear? Yes, that's very nice. They're also talking about how the relationships, the sort of the sidewalk discussions, the sidewalk conversations are helping things to get done in an easy manner so that people who are coming here are feeling like it's a little easier to get things done. So I think that's a wonderful thing. We will need to be working together because we're now in kind of an interesting state of the economy. We're a tourism-driven state. There are some things that we're concerned about, probably you are as well, about how many visitors we'll get this year or what the economy is going to be like for folks. So our ability to continue to work together, to stay strong, to be flexible, I think is going to be really important as we go along. So I wanted to start with that. We are strong together, and that's a great place for us to start. So I showed you this slide last time, but I want to again remind you that for us to do economic development together, it's really about making sure that we celebrate the successes, that we talk about what we've done well, that we keep the foot in the pedal, though, that we don't let know, that we continue to do all the things that we know work, that we also name the challenges. I think at one point Matt had said to us, please, you've got to bring the challenges to us as well. You just can't bring the good stuff. And I think it's important that we all understand the challenges. That way we can address them together. And to always be looking into the future and to be flexible and be able to pivot. So these are the same things that you're going to see in all the work that we continue to do. But our united efforts have really mattered. This is an unbelievable list of people that are on my board, that the council participates, Sophie participates, Brett participates. It's an unbelievable group of people who are on the board who are putting a lot of attention to this. They have a really wide and diverse background, which is wonderful. It helps us to think about how to get things done better. And even with all this, we have two wonderful people who are retiring. Stephanie Millette has served 3 years. She's going to go on her way with her little one. We also have Jason Solhan, who has been our liaison from Bean, is going to go. They're supposed to do, I can't remember how many openings this year and next year, but that's what he's on track for doing. So new additions are, we have John Monahan, who is joining us from LL Bean, and we also have Brian Bickford from Maine Golf, which is a wonderful thing for us because he is the president of the Maine Tourism Board. So he's going to bring a lot of information to us about just kind of how things work in tourism. So again, thank you so much. It's really been great, us all working together. What a big difference it's made. And we have a lot to do in the future. So now I'm going to turn it to Tawny.
It's so important, relationships, as we said, and one of the founding relationships that I think has been so instrumental in us finding success is actually sitting next to me. I told her to sit because I want her to be, I love her serious side. And I feel like that's part of, we get up here and we like rah-rah cheerlead. And I think it's sometimes confusing that there's so much incredible work that goes before we come here, before you quarterly. And Mary is so instrumental in that leadership of our board and couldn't, I mean, she is the yin to my yang. I'm like a mess and excited and energetic, and Mary's like, puts me together and sends me on my way. So I do want to say that I talk about relationships often, and they are truly the number one thing that I feel like we have success in. But I wanted to also say that about my girl. So recently, though, we held 2 business listening sessions. Sophie's often said to us that, you know, if there's a challenge, we can't really address it unless we actually hear from the businesses themselves. You know, I can come here and kind of give you a pulse of what's going on, but actually hearing from the business owners and the property owners about what it is it's the challenge is really how we're going to be able to solve things and move forward. We held one for the downtown district at the Oyster Bar, and it was more well attended than they had registered for. Like, it exceeded our expectations. It was a full house, voices that we actually don't often hear from, and some that we do. There were a lot of a lot of parts that were very similar and some that were different. I also want to say that, like, a lot of the things that got brought up aren't like the town, you know, this isn't working. It really was some things that the town can assist with, like, you know, ordinances to change for, you know, being able to be louder a little bit later at night. But a lot of them were like more specific to their businesses. For example, you know, wanting to put sale racks out on the sidewalks and things like that. So I want to compliment you that when you have a room like that, we really, I mean, we're a little nervous. We're like, what's going to happen when you truly give somebody the mic to let them speak freely, you know? And I compliment you for giving them such a positive base to work from in Freeport. The next one that we held was at Maine Beer for the Route 1 business community. True transparency, a part of the business community that we haven't really shined our light on to date. And that was a very different meeting, very different issues, you know, as we expected. But again, what we found with that meeting is they desire to be more collaborative with each other. A desire to be a little more connected with town. For example, they brought up Christmas lights and being more festive and just giving people more attractive reasons to be in Freeport. So I really thank you for having this collaborative meeting with the Chamber and FEDC and the town. I think it just showed so well to our business community, and as a result, we got excellent things. We will do a more formal feedback to you from when Brett gets back, but they went really well. So this is the cheerleading time. I can't believe I haven't had an opportunity to say this. I know everybody knows this in this room. I hope you do. But we are privileged enough to have a movie theater again in Freeport. Yes. In a time where mostly what we hear is that theaters are closing, we have one that's opening. It was one of the number one things that I heard from residents and business community is, when is the theater opening? When's the theater opening? And with a lot of focus, and we were able to make that happen. It's a wonderful user. It's him and his wife and their kids, and they own 3 other movie theaters. One of them is actually located in Portland, the Nickelodeon. It was actually that theater that I drove by, and I thought, that looks pretty much like what we have. Like, who's doing that? Because that's still open. So I'm just honored to have David Scott of Patriot Cinema opening our theater. Potentially, it will be opening, I can't give you a date, but I can tell you that it's weeks away. Weeks away, not months, not any more than that. They're getting everything ready to go and hiring staff. I was in there just the other day, and they were like literally they themselves cleaning every seat. I mean, the theater is in magnificent shape, but they still have, it's 14,000 square feet of cleaning, so it's a lot to do. I don't want to go too much further, but I do want to tell you one quick story. When this relationship happened over many, many, many months, probably a year, and along the way, I would introduce David to members of our community, and one of the first members of our community that I introduced him to was Roger Diffrin of LL Bean. Roger does a great job talking about the future of Freeport from the lens of LL Bean, and that's a really important relationship for us to have. He was so kind. He said, I apologize that I was a little late, Tawny, but I wanted to do something. So he went to Bean's, and he had a tote bag monogrammed, "Let's go to the movies, Freeport, Maine," and gave David a couple other tokens from Bean's. And the other day when I was in the theater, David wanted to do something for LL Bean and their employees and so forth, and he asked if he could meet Roger again. And then he pulled out the keys to the theater, and there was the boot keychain that Roger had given him. So I just thought that's just so touching to show that, like, you know, these relationships matter that much and mean that much to these people who are exploring the opportunity of being in Freeport. So we also have Clark Shoe and the Village, Merrill, Verizon. We have a new candy store coming in a very unusual space, not a space I thought would fly off so quickly. But it's a Swedish candy store. And if you guys look on social media, this is a trending sort of new age kind of store. It's experiential. We are learning that, like, for stores today, they still want brick and mortar. We still want all of that, but you want it experiential and you want it Instagram worthy, guys. So this has all of those elements. If you follow their social media, they have a really large following. They're sisters. They grew up in Bath, and they used to come to Freeport for, you know, fun in the summer, and it's always held a warm place in their heart. So that's why they chose Freeport to open their second store. Dun, 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 dun. This is almost so exciting, too. I mean, oh my gosh, you guys, you're going to love this one. It says the Heresy Get In. The tavern is reopening. I know, right? They said they had a feedback long enough that the beloved tavern is opening. So they will open this. They will open at the end of this month. They are going to start by just being open for lunch because they do want Porter to still serve for dinner. But they really felt and listened to our community, and the tavern is going to be open again, which is just awesome.
Chip is smiling.
Yes, I texted him earlier, yes. On Route 1, we have Woods and Water in the gear store. The gear store was on the northern part of Freeport, and they combined with a business that was in Brunswick that really wanted to be in Freeport and took over a wonderful space on Route 1. I was there yesterday. It looks fantastic. I felt like I was at LL Bean, so it's a really great compliment to our town, and certainly we have the customers for them. Love Point Oysters has opened up, and they opened up over the weekend. And thanks to the planning board and the town council, we were able to do some changes in the ordinance to allow or to accommodate Roma Joe's to be coming to Freeport. This was, again, a great example of us working together, and they needed a seat reduction, which got approved relatively quickly, in my opinion. And it's just going to be a great diverse use. As we learned in the downtown revision, we want more food and beverage, and this is, again, really trending and popular. I know, because I have teenagers. So those are our things. And of course, again, all of you really have seen now the things that we've been working on for years is to bring housing to Freeport. And you've seen the groundbreaking of the Dash downtown. And of course, the Freeport Housing Trust has their Varney Heights is quite well along. The sewer district expansion is going to support all of this, and then on Thursday we will start to see the groundbreaking of Depot Terrace. So that is incredible progress. And Joanna, no wonder you received the award for that. What a huge thing for
Also,
Freeport.
to be clear, that was not me receiving, that was all of us.
Well,
It was
that's,
definitely.
I'm glad that outside of here, we do so much within the Freeport borders that outside, it's starting to show. So
That's
And of
great.
course, these four were truly all of us working together. It took
definitely took a village to get this
Yes,
done.
yeah. And so we have been tracking our vacancy rate since 2000 and, what is that little tiny number, Mary?
2019 is all the way far to the left.
Yeah. So in that time, we've seen ups and downs, but I can tell you that we've actually never seen our vacancy rate as low as it is in downtown Freeport right now. Right now in the village, it's 4.1%, which is incredible. Greatly, we got there in part by taking the 14,000 square feet of a theater and filling that. When we first got those numbers a few weeks ago, I was so excited because it's an incredible thing to be at. But I also want to say that we are really we're really focused on the temperature and the culture and we're just not out of the woods completely. I am very close with these property owners, and it's inevitable we're in a time of change. And so at one hand, I want to celebrate the very low vacancy rate, but I also am, cautious about how, the temperature, the health of downtown and what the future might be like over the next months and year. So I, again, will stay very close with all of that and keep you up to date. But for now, let's celebrate the fact that the vacancy rate is incredibly low. What's next for Freeport? What do you guys think? What we're doing now is I do have the privilege of being able to go to conferences and I just really am nerded out on this kind of stuff. I really do. It's exciting for me in a way that most people play tennis and I like economics. And so we have the privilege of going to conferences. I also take a lot of webinars to just sort of, like I say, keep up on what the trend is, what's growing, what's coming back. One thing we learned is shoe stores are really loving to come back to brick and mortar. So it's just, I think it really helps us stay connected to what's next and try to get ahead of it. And when I see certain things McDonald's is expanding, and then all of a sudden I'm like, this really is happening. So I feel privileged to be able to get educated on what's next. It's been very helpful for us to stay on top of things. So, and then the other thing that I guess I want to point out on this is that we're trying to put together a meeting of property owners and invite the realtors to this meeting. Again, this touches on understanding what the property owners need and want. A lot of them still aren't at market rates that I think are of today's standards. And so we did this a few years ago with them, and it was very helpful. And then bringing in the realtors to talk about the market in other places. So we are in the works of planning that meeting to get everybody together again, kind of a different version of what we did with the business community.
All right. Thank you, Tony. And this is really the entire group of priorities or the work plan, as you guys might make note. The mission of Freeport Economic Development Corp. has been the same since it was founded, 28 years with Chip Gray and so many others. That's really about sustainable economic growth. That's what we're all about. And so the things that you'll see in our priorities and our work plan are around that. A portion, the first 6 of them, are what we're continuing doing. We've been doing this for the last 2 years, and we want to continue to keep our foot on the pedal with these things. Marketing, connecting owners, building relationships, downtown housing, partnershiping with you all, and making sure that the zoning ordinances keep changing. So those are the things we've been doing the last couple of years, and they're really important that we keep our foot in the pedal on that. There's a few other things I think we need to start. One of them is to refresh or update the downtown vision. Sophie and I talked about that. One of our board members told us that it could be easier for us to get grants and such, both for the town and for us, if we have an updated downtown vision. So Sophie and I talked about there could be a way to sort of easily do that so that we could have a documented, updated downtown vision. The second thing is this idea of having the downtown businesses, not just the people who are renting, but the downtown businesses together. We want the owners to say to us, what are the challenges that are getting in your way? One of the things we heard at this hearing session is that one owner said, I'd love to break up some of my big spaces, it's just really expensive. So that's an example of we want to get these people together and ask them really what they need. The next is getting the marketing message. So the commercial realtor forum, we can hear what are people looking for? What are the brands that we need to be looking for? How is our message missing? Or how is it hitting? Getting big national brands is still a challenge for us. We don't quite have the walkthrough that people are looking for, or nationals are looking for. But we know that there's a tweak and that we can get there. We want to make sure we have that great relationship with LL Bean. They're going to open back up. They bring a huge amount of people into Freeport, and we'd like the town to really rally around how do we do some sort of grand reopening with them to celebrate and bringing everybody back again. Get the TIF supported and on its way. Brett's working on that. Expanding that marketing focus to Route 1 South, because I think there's some opportunities there. There's some land that is empty that there's things that we could do with. Creating that do downtown. We have a lot of shopping, but we always need to keep thinking of Brian Bickford, who just he's, I don't know how much you have met him. He's a bigger than life character who is very enthusiastic. And he keeps talking to us. If you have a doing thing in Freeport, people will come shop, do, and stay. And so I think we need to be thinking about how to move to that next. And the financial resilience, FEDC really can't afford to do what we're doing long term. Right now, the initial founders put money into a savings account, which within 3 years we will have spent to nothing, because we're spending down about $22,000 a year to do that. So we'll have to figure that out. This was brought to you by Brett, I think it was in January, to talk about numbers on goals. And although we love these goals, we love having number goals in place, I think it's also important for us to look at these with realism as well. I mean, right now, setting new housing units seems pretty easy since we have 150 of them in process right now. But I think, again, to look at these goals as directional and to keep reporting on them and keep us honest to them, but also to realize every year might not be, a banner year like we've had. Although we're tracking mostly to these this year, so that's really good news. And so finally, to talk about the challenges, we all know that parking is always one of the challenges. I think in Freeport we'll talk about that for the rest of our lives, right? But I know Brett has some ideas about how to help with the construction so that we are aware and taking that into account. Continuing this focus on the code and process changes. I'm really encouraged to see what Sophie and the town are doing to keep that moving along. And of course, watching all the economic impacts. We're worried. I mean, we want to watch the traffic patterns. We want to watch how many people come here this year. We know that there are some changes in Canadians coming and other things. So I think that will be a really important thing for us to watch together as to how it impacts downtown. All right? That's us. What questions do you have?
Thank you for that. That was a great presentation. I know I was able to attend one of the listening sessions at Main Beer Company, and it was great. And thank you, Ken, for hosting one as well.
Absolutely.
That list of businesses opening, I think there's 10, and 7 of them are local or are very regional, which just makes my heart sing, keeps money in Maine, and really strengthens the fabric of our community. So great work, very exciting. Any other thoughts or questions? Thank you. My household's very excited about the candy shop. Big fans of the Portland one.
Oh, good. I can tell you knew what that.
Oh, yes. Something makes it feel healthier. I don't know why. Yes. Exactly. All right, so then we will move on to our town manager's report. Anything to add?
The only thing I would add is that yesterday, public safety staff, code staff, and I met with LL Bean representatives as they are starting to roll out their planning for events for the opening. So it was a really great meeting. We were able to kind of talk through peak versus kind of the stable events, and I think council will be really pleased when they're ready to roll out what's actually going to occur. So just wanted to make sure you were aware that there is a lot of event planning that goes on behind the scenes with public safety and codes to make sure that they have to follow the same rules as everybody else. And of course, I would remind people that town hall hours are changing on July 6th. We're going to be moving to 7:30 to 5 Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 7:30 to 6 on Tuesdays.
Anything else folks want to call out from the manager's report?
Just to confirm, because I know we got a couple of questions on it, with the data centers, all of our zones have allowed uses listed, and none of the zones have anything that would be construed as a data center as an allowable use. Therefore, there's no opportunity for anyone to come to town and say, I'd like to build a data center here, because it's not an allowed use unless the planning board and the council vote to make an exception to that or change the ordinance. Is that?
Yes, yeah, and I just want to make sure people know that's not just me saying it. I sat down with planning and codes to make sure that we had a cohesive interpretation, and the land use implications of AI data centers really move them beyond office use or the things that other similar types of IT-type activity has fallen into in the past.
Great. Thanks.
Yeah, this is clearly a hot topic in our neighboring communities as well, so I'm glad it was brought up. And yeah, please keep us, I mean, we'll obviously hear of progress and updates as we hear from the state, but staff will keep us updated as well. Yep. All right, anything else? Okay. So we'll move on to our first public comment period. This is for folks who are here in person. This is for items that are not on the agenda. Just ask that folks approach the podium, introduce themselves, and keep their comments to 3 minutes or less.
My name is Joyce Vayu, and I'm the cemetery lady. I just wanted to let the council know that we will be working on July 8th and 9th at the Randall Cemetery, which is the little one at Shaw's Plaza. We'll be finishing that one up this year, and then we're going to be starting at the Lane Cemetery for 3 days, which is the one up Pleasant Hill. So we'd love to have you come by and meet Joe, see how we do it, what we do, and how much fun it is. Maybe get your hands dirty.
Thank you, Joyce.
Good evening. My name is Daniel Freund, and I live on Chehawk Road in Freeport. I reviewed the bylaws as amended on December 4th, 2012, and the only reference to consensus was on page 10, dealing with email practices. Quote, all votes on town matters must be taken at an open meeting with a quorum of councilors present. Participants in an email exchange should limit their discussion to personal opinion or comment, and no attempt should be made by an individual in an email exchange to influence a potential vote of the town council or to build consensus toward such vote, and no consensus may be achieved in an email exchange. I also went on and read the Freeport Town Charter from November 8th, 2016. The word consensus does not appear in the document. I know that people are concerned about how meetings are conducted, and there's been a continuing theme of transparency. At least one counselor campaigned on the platform of collaboration, communication, and transparency. Another counselor stated during the campaign, I absolutely love this town and can't wait to get to work representing our entire community's best interests. A third counselor said, making good decisions that are supported by data and are not made in isolation, and continuing to solicit and receive feedback from all stakeholders to ensure we are continuing down the right path for our economy. And a fourth counselor, in an annual report, said the core focus was improving efficiency and transparency of public services and processes. And finally, a fifth counselor campaigned on the themes of focus, listening, collaboration, and learning before acting. I would just mention that if you don't have the data, it's hard to learn. In light of the bylaws, the charter, and public statements by 5 counselors, I think it's reasonable to review how decisions were made at your goals meeting then record the votes and make that information public. More than once, I have asked the manager for information, and she has refused to answer the questions. The manager is bound by Maine's Freedom of Access Act, MRS 401 to 414. The town manager cannot legally withhold information just because it's politically inconvenient, it would cause public disagreement, it reflects poorly on the town, or it was discovered during research. Specifically, if it does not fall under a legal exemption, it is public record. In conclusion, the largest item in the budget after salaries is employee benefits, and the majority of that is medical insurance costs.
I'm just going to have to ask you to wrap up.
2 more
Can
sentences?
you finish this thought? Thank you.
Thank you. At the end of the day, I'm asking the council to approve an email requesting medical claims data, which I maintain will illuminate significant disparity in cost versus another third-party administrator that offers identical plans with the same providers. Thank you for your leniency.
I know we can't address everything that everyone mentions in public comment. I just want to clarify that the goal-setting workshop is a public meeting that we held at the library, which is open to the public. We did not have any members of the public there at that meeting, but we don't adopt the goals there. The goals are adopted publicly here in council chambers, and that is reflected in the minutes as to when those goals were adopted.
Any other public comment? All right. So we will go ahead and close our public comment period. We will move on to our new business portion of the agenda, moving on to item 73-26. This is our consent agenda. Any questions or comments before we move forward? Councilor Smith, I'll start with you.
I know. Be it ordered that the June 2nd, 2026 consent agenda be adopted.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
I do just want to thank the Friends of Freeport Community Library for their generous support of a new lectern in the meeting room. Although I'm afraid of what's going to happen to the vintage lectern that's been there for the last 35 years.
Please don't put it in the attic. There are a few fire pits around.
All right, then moving on to item 74-26. This is our public hearing for our FY27 budget. As Jessica gets set up, I'll just share a few words. So this hearing is one of several opportunities residents have had to share feedback and ask questions. The town manager's proposed budget was presented to council and the public on April 16th. Since then, the council has held 5 budget workshops and staff has hosted 2 public question and answer sessions. Folks, we have a great showing this evening, but for folks who are not here and are listening to this meeting later and still have questions or comments, I encourage folks to please reach out to staff or council by email or phone anytime. We hope our timeline right now is to consider the final adoption of the budget at our June 16th meeting. I do want to take a moment to thank the staff for a tremendous amount of work behind the scenes in developing this budget. Before the budget was released, the town manager and staff identified approximately $400,000 in savings before it even saw the light of day. So I know that was a heavy lift, so thank you for that. I do also want to thank my fellow counselors up here as well for the thoughtful work throughout this process. After hearing from residents about challenges of the rising costs, the council at our last meeting directed an additional $134,000 in savings, which was not easy and often did not have consensus. Thank you, Councilor Smith, for your facilitation. I will say the result is a very lean budget that focuses on maintaining essential services and service levels our community has relied on, while doing our best to limit the impact on taxpayers as much as possible. An important part that I think Jessica will probably discuss as well is that not all of the budget increase we are seeing is driven by town spending. Of the approximately 495,000, I think we're seeing right now, net increase on the budget, about 360,000 is due to the combined impact of a reduction in our state revenue sharing from the state that will come to the town. And this also reflects debt payments for the ladder truck that we voted on via referendum. So I'll leave it at that for now. I think council will spend some time drafting a letter to the public after we adopt the budget, and try and do our best to keep folks up to date and encourage transparency as much as possible. Jessica.
All right, so this is just to give you a budget recap of the process, so I'll kind of filter through most of this, being that with the highlights you just gave, to not be repetitive. So this is what we've had when the budget was released. We've had 5 workshops, 2 information sessions. We have the public hearing tonight with tentative adoption on the 16th. I'll take a minute to further expand on the staff's side of the budget before it even came to council, because I feel like it's important. We've made note that we made cuts, but I just really want to hit home what those were and what those impacts are. So to kind of, as you referenced, it was around 400,000, so it's 440,000 that we've identified prior to even coming to council from the initial request of department heads and staff. And that $440,000 savings came from wages and benefits, where there was a reduction to the COLA for non-union staff. COLA, typically the town has always based its cost of living off of CPI and where it stands at a point in time in the year. At that point in time, COLA was 2.7%. There are floors and ceilings within the union contracts that put that at 3% minimum. And so typically we've always mirrored, being that it's a COLA benefit, we've mirrored that across all staff. This is the first year that I can remember in quite some time where non-union is being reflected differently. And I just would further point out, I guess, that CPI since the initial presentation of the budget has gone from 2.7% to 4.4%. And in addition to that, Social Security payment COLAs are currently at 2.8%. So, I just really feel it's important to recognize staff is taking a hit here if this remains at this level. And to kind of be able to give you a baseline of what that means so that you can have the discussion, hopefully, is, the total impact to equalize CPI for all employees is $30,500, which equates to 0.012 cents on the mill rate. And that just would equalize all employees. So just giving you background information of what we went through, what we looked at. This line also includes reductions in staffing where there were efficiencies to be had in consolidation. Am I saying this correctly, Sophie?
Yeah, and I noticed I pulled up an older version of this where
yes.
Yeah, this is actually a reduction in staffing. We cut half a position at Public Works, and I think it's really important.
I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. I think it's really important just to understand that the impact of that is that we're not going to have somebody readily available at Public Works to welcome the public. We talked about that during the workshop, but that will become a work area, and we will field public inquiries, Earl, through appointments with Earl, phone calls with Earl, and through the town office.
So that's the wage and benefit line. Paving reductions are based on current staffing levels and the planned upkeep of road projects. And so that was at $75,000. We did, based on review of the TIF documentation, we ran some numbers and determined that approximately 75,000 could probably be pulled from the general fund and qualify under the TIF for that administration. We also had a reduction based on anticipated need with engineering services, so there was a slight $25,000 reduction there. And we discussed and made the decision to remove the $25,000 that we would hold for abatement requests out of the budget and rely solely on overlay that is established by the assessor. And then to offset that, as you had indicated earlier, there's also a revenue impact. I'm not, obviously staff isn't recommending a reduction of the state revenue side, but what we did do is what I would normally increase excise tax revenue to, we did a little bit more. So where I'm typically conservative with revenue and where we project to come in, we eased up on some of that conservative thought. But what I want to point out with that is that I just want council to understand that that really comes at a direct impact to the capital program. As do, quite frankly, a lot of these lines, right? Because on these lines where we haven't been spending to the max, right, or haven't had the opportunity due to vacancies or scheduling or projects, we've had the ability to take that funding and put it directly into the capital program, which helps fund our capital needs. We're going to find that, and I know the last few years, for those, it's a broken record of, you know, really trying to monitor the funding sources of the capital plan and what the reserve levels are. This is really only going to pinch that. This type of approach is really only going to pinch that and force us to really evaluate how those capital plans are funded and what we need to do going forward. So that's kind of the process staff went through to get to the 440,000 before it even came to you. Obviously, if you can't tell by my presentation, these are certainly items for you to consider as well. You know, I know you guys have gone through a process based on the baseline that we started with, but I think it's important you understand the impact of these staffing, you know, decisions as well.
Yeah, the only thing I would add to this slide is, you know, we talked at several intervals during the budget process that in order, the marching orders to staff was to try to get our regular service level that everybody is used to and try not to diminish that while still having the money to offer the service. And so what you're seeing is a trimming of contingency. So in that, I'll take paving as an example. Earl had money in that account, so when something came up that was not necessarily on the work plan at the beginning of the year, but was important to a neighborhood or to whatever, he had a little bit of extra money to be able to meet that need. The other point I would just make, and I might be the only one that cares about this nuance, but I do want people to understand that the $440,000 cut was not a cut that happened when everybody gave their requests and then we trimmed that down. This is a cut that came after requests were made. So before this ever hit, I had staffing requests from 3 departments. There were some other things that we elected not to put in the budget that I think we've talked about through the process. So I want people to understand that this was not, everybody got what they wanted and we just trimmed 440,000. This was after we had done that normal trim.
Yes, good point. Moving on, this is just a recap, as you know, of the council budget adjustments that have been made. So to take really quickly how we got to the 133,855 is a deferral of the senior tax rebate program of 25,000, reduction of outside agency support of 27,250. We transferred 25,000 of Winslow Park administrative time to the Winslow Park Fund. We removed the rest of the economic development to TIF. We have the proposal of the removal of the West Street Silver Bullet, as well as removal of the part-time library position of 20,000.
And I'll just, you wrote this very well, but just to be explicitly clear, we're not getting rid of the senior tax rebate
No.
program. We've been spending
Deferred it.
less than we thought we would, so
That's
there's money that we're carrying forward.
That is correct.
Yeah.
And at a future point, when that money that we've been saving spends down, there will be a budgetary increase to continue and maintain the program. So from a visual standpoint, this just kind of puts it all together. In total, out of all these budget considerations, it's a 21-cent savings on the mill rate for all, between the staff and council directives. So what this means is the municipal tax levy impact went from $629,835 down to $494,230, or 5.93%. The 5.93% increase is based on the projected tax amount year over year from last year to this year. The total tax levy increase is 6.53% under this model. The town's portion of that 6.53%, which I'm hoping this is what Eric was looking for, Councilor Smith was looking for, to be explicitly stated for people, is that the town's portion is 1.44% of that 6.53. So a pretty minor. It would take a lot of change to make an impact at 1.4%.
And I think too, this is, what you see on your tax bill when you get it
Yes.
is the four taxing agencies.
That is correct. Yep. To pop over real quick, I just want to note, and you had started to allude to this in your narrative, Joanna, is that of that $494,230 levy increase, that, there are a few items that you have, none of us have any control over, being staff or council, and that's the loss of state revenue sharing at $167,436, the increased debt service that residents voted on of $150,000, and the, I'll call it statutory budget, Buston Island distribution increase of $46,000. So that even with what's presented to you, all you have left to work with is $130,794. Oh, sorry. So what this means, and I'm going to ask you to ignore the breakdown percentage on this file, but what this means for a household impact, we have a mill rate increase of 0.85 cents or 6.53%. On a median household value of $460,000, that would be a projected total tax increase of $390.79. The percentages that are there do not include overlay, which is, so I don't want to make it confusing, but the 6.14 should really be the 6.53. I just, in a newer version, this was the initial first version, so the way it's broken down is Cumberland County is 0.85%, RSU is 4.2, transit remains at 0.04, and the town of Freeport is 1.44, to total that 6.53%. And that concludes my overview and presentation.
You still have 20 minutes left.
Well, this was the opening of the public hearing. How's that? So now the public has 20 minutes to pop up.
Thank you. That was very helpful. Any questions for Jessica before we open the public hearing? Okay, well, with that, I will go ahead and open the public hearing. So if folks are interested in speaking on the budget, they may enter, or they may approach the dais. Same rules, please introduce yourself and try to keep your remarks to 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Bob Lyman from Beach Hill Road. In our letter to you on May 3rd, Caroline and I suggested eliminating or reducing new big ticket items like the fire rescue up $665,000, the alternative response up $111,000, and the planning department up $22,000. You suggested in your remake at the in your remarks at the May 5th meeting, it was too late to make those kinds of changes, even though that was the first operating budget review. Instead, you were going to do nothing to the manager's budget and have an active finance committee for the 2027 budget year. We have no issue with that kind of committee, but we still have major concerns with this year's budget. From your own chart on page 23 of the 248 in your budget document, you have had 4 years in a row of municipal budget increases, averaging 9.3%. That's more than 3 times the cost of living each year for 4 years. Let me repeat, more than 3 times the cost of living each year for the last 4 years. This is the municipal budget, your budget, not the schools or the counties. This is not making up for COVID. This is your budget. We believe you need to get this a little more under control. Your cuts at the last meeting were appreciated, but not really enough. If you're not taking any major chunks out, as suggested earlier, and that's still a suggestion, the difference, consider taking out some of the discretionary money. The difference between the columns in your budget document that are labeled 2026 actual expenditures and the manager's proposal for 2027. Without touching salaries, this is in multiple lines on each page and would not be touching those salaries or major changes. Just doing this on the first 5 pages of the manager's proposed budget would reduce the budget by over $50,000. You could do the same for all pages and departments, or pick and choose what you wanted to look at. But it's another way of looking at reductions. Thank you.
That, your comment about the too late did make me think of something I wanted to mention of, to address that, I think what you're referring to is sort of this idea that further reductions that we do make will impact service levels significantly. We already are with some of the positions. So I think, we demonstrated some cuts and some hard decisions last meeting. And I just want to highlight what I think you're talking about with the next step really is the Finance Committee starting to look at long-term sustainability, not just year over year, but long-term ideas of, regionalization, attrition, other ideas of how we can tamp down increases over time. So that process begins right after this budget.
Hi, good evening. Caroline Thornlyman up on Beach Hill Road. We've been here 43 years. So you're not really going to like what I have to say either, but I'm going to go ahead with it. So when we wrote our letter to the council May 3rd, our concerns about the budget was then at 7.55%. And we watched the 3 council meetings. We've read the 248 pages. We've gone through the 41 pages of the budget analysis. We've looked at the revisions discussed at the May 19th council meeting. And Bob and I met with Councilor Joanna and Eric, and that was very nice. For about an hour, we had a very interesting, informative conversation. And we did disagree with you about the 7.55%. But we came away from that meeting thinking that the council wasn't going to consider any more budget cuts, but as of May 19th, you did. So we still think the budget is too high at 5.93%. I know you spent considerable time at the May 19th meeting about cutting the library position, the silver bullet, defunding or decreasing this funding for outside agency support. And this is a very small part of the budget. But I agree that some of these things can be cut, but I also think that I agree with the councilors who have concerns about cutting services to residents as property taxes go up, rent goes up, and the cost of everything else people are needing goes up. So in particular, FCS is going to be needed more than ever in this community. And I've talked to them, they're seeing more and more people already. So the service side, being an educator and social worker myself, I'm really, I don't think that should be touched as much. So what Bob was saying, like RSU 5 had to make a very difficult decision. They cut positions, and that's going to hurt. Because I've been in schools, I've taught a special ed teacher, whatever. And their budget is down to 3.97% increase. So I think you're going to have to start considering some personnel cuts. So from the town budget, you had employment fiscal year 2022 at 89.83, and then up to fiscal year 27, you're going to 98.88. So that's an increase of 10 full-time equivalent positions in 5 years. And Bob gave you some of the monetary figures of these increases. So I think that might be a place to start looking. It's hard. I was fired from a job, well, not fired, but budget cuts years ago. I know it's hard, but sometimes it's necessary. And I think with your emphasis on downtown development is great, but we, the citizens, I'm not feeling we're getting a lot out of that. So I'm talking for the residents, not downtown, not the businesses. We need to have you be thinking more about us. And I agree, the balance I don't feel is there yet. So thank you for what you're doing, and I'm asking you to do more. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Ashley Schumacher. I live on Windsor Post Road. Thank you all for your service to our community and for the opportunity to come talk to you tonight. I am a regular library patron and the proud parent of a library kid. And a year ago, those of you on the appointments committee made my little municipal dream come true by approving me to serve on the Freeport Community Library's Board of Trustees. It's my continued enthusiasm for our wonderful library that brings me here tonight. To be clear, I'm here of my own volition, and these opinions are my own. Last week, I learned that you all at the council decided to remove a recently vacated 19-hour per week circulation desk position from the fiscal year 27 municipal budget for what I just learned was $20,000, and I'm really proud of my estimation skills because that was exactly what I guessed. I couldn't find it online. As you know, this position was created as a low-cost solution to a demand for increased community programming through the library. Those programs have been wildly successful, and eliminating that position would mean eliminating the programming hours it facilitated. This would mean losing all of our community outreach programs through the library, so that would be story time at the farmers market, tech time with Andrew at the Freeport Community Center, and programming at Hawthorne House. It would also include all staffed Saturday programs, including the Lego Club, which is for parents of small children, amazing and really important. Many of the children's crafts, pet adoption events, among other specialty Saturday programming. Anyone who's been to the library on a Saturday knows just how bustling it is, and often folks are coming in specifically for the programming. And then engaging with the library materials as a secondary service. And it would mean in the next school year, decreasing summer reading program content for adults and children, as well as reduced programming for children during school vacations. These are programs that impact hundreds of residents annually, and their loss would be immense to families needing no or low-cost family activities, and to residents for whom the outreach programs may be the only way they can access the library at all. I don't envy your position or the responsibility you bear to create a budget that meets the needs of the community without taxing people out of their homes. But this can't be the place to save. The 1,000 hours this circulation desk position creates annually for librarians to work directly with the community are invaluable, certainly worth $20,000, and needed more now more than ever. Please restore this position and the subsequent programming it allows to the fiscal year 27 municipal budget without delay. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Ashley.
Hello, everybody. My name's Haley Mayo, and I live in Council District 4 on Durham Road. I wrote an email to the council, and I think I'll just read my email out loud so everyone can hear what I wrote. I'm writing today after hearing about the decision that was recently made regarding off-site and Saturday programming at the Freeport Community Library. I have 3 young children, twin 7-year-olds and a 4-year-old, and we have been active and engaged members of our library ever since returning to Freeport. I grew up here, so I went to this library when I was a little kid. We have attended story times, played summer reading bingo, have had stuffy sleepovers, learned how to make kimchi, completed obstacle courses, on and on and on, not to mention the hundreds of books, possibly thousands of books, that we have checked out over the years. Our family has a fierce love for the library and all the staff who work so tirelessly to make these programs happen, which is why the council's decision felt so upsetting to our family. My kids have participated in many of the Saturday programs in the past, namely the Lego Club, which is really great, and I can say that these programs would be sorely missed and felt throughout the community. Removing off-site programs like story times at the farmers market and helping seniors with their tech issues would lessen the reach of the library at a time in our country when local libraries are already under attack. Many families depend on these programs and have kids who look forward to them. It may seem like a small thing that would be taken away, but I assure you this will impact our community absolutely. I understand the reasoning behind such a decision. Taxes are skyrocketing, as we've just heard. The cost of everything around us is soaring, and everyone is feeling the squeeze on their wallets. It seems like a simple solution to not rehire an employee and to cut these programs. I have heard, however, that this cut will save only each taxpayer around $1 per person. I can't imagine that this slight save will actually have a meaningful impact on Freeport taxpayers as a whole, but I can say with confidence that taking these programs away from the public will be felt. I hope to come, I'm here. So thank you for your time. I really appreciate all the hard work that you do. I know Ashley said she doesn't envy you. I don't envy you either. But I really appreciate all you do, and thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Anybody else who would like to speak? Do we have anyone online? So with that, I will go ahead and close the public hearing and bring it up to the council for any discussion. We're not voting on the budget tonight. But any thoughts?
Just 2 brief comments. One is, one of the commenters said, "You're not going to like what I have to say." Speaking for myself, I like the feedback. I like that people are involved. It's like you also said, you don't envy a position we're in because we're either not cutting deeply enough or we're cutting too deeply. But the feedback is so important because otherwise we're doing it all in a vacuum. So I like hearing that what we're doing is not what everybody wants to happen. It's valuable feedback. As you also pointed out, we can't please everybody all the time. Every budget is likely always going to be a compromise where everybody walks away a little bit disappointed that it's either too high or too low or we didn't do the right things in the right places. So it is difficult. I get that, and I don't have an easy answer for that. But the one comment I did want to address is the impact of the downtown work that we're doing. I'll try and make it succinct, but I'm happy to go into more detail after the meeting if anybody wants to. But we set a budget, and we need to collect a certain amount of money in taxes, and some of that comes from residential properties, and some of that comes from commercial properties. As the commercial properties become less valuable, the share of taxes we need to collect from the residential properties goes up. So if we could make Main Street more valuable and basically increase the rents on Main Street, then we can collect more taxes from stores and less taxes from houses. So that's at a super high level how that balance works out. So are we spending the right amount of money on downtown, or too much, or not enough? Those are great debates to have. But I just want to point out that that's part of why the residential tax bill has felt so onerous in recent years, is because the value of our downtown real estate is not what it was in the 80s and 90s, has diminished. So we're working on that. That's all I've got.
Any other thoughts?
Well, I think, you know what I'm probably going to say, right? I think we should restore the library because of what everyone said. It's what I believe what I said last time. And I think we reduce even more what we give to outside agencies. And although it's nice to be able to do that, it is above and beyond what we need to do as a town.
And that was one of the areas we cut on May 19th.
Yeah, but we didn't cut enough. That's what I'm saying.
And I also wanted to address the fire rescue budget. We consolidated them on the budget this year, so it does make it look like there's a huge increase because they were separate and now they've been combined. And you can speak on the data or the software, it doesn't retroactively combine them.
That is correct. Once the consolidation happens, it doesn't retroactively consolidate, it goes going forward.
Yep.
So the documents online, there's the shorter 40-page line-by-line item has the rescue breakout in it, so that residents and everybody can see that the rescue budget, can see where the actuals are right now, as well as to see the budget has gone to zero, and then you see the increase in the fire side. So will just make back-end reporting and coding easier in the long run, but as we discussed right from the beginning, it does make it difficult on a analytical year-over-year comparison in that first year of the budget. So
Yep.
next year it'll be better.
Yep. Great. And I will just reiterate again that this, the conversation that the Finance Committee will have in July is long-term financial planning and strategy. So I certainly recommend that folks stay up to date with that as well. Great.
I would just echo what Councilor Pilch said in terms of thanking everyone for coming and participating and for sending us emails. It is helpful to get that feedback, particularly from folks who have dug into the budget and have real serious questions. Sometimes we can answer those right away. Sometimes it makes us go and get those answers so that we have that information as well as we're trying to make these decisions. I would also echo the piece about the compromise, where I am very aware of what our finance director is telling us, that even to make the cuts that we're making in order to keep that tax bill down as low as we can does put us at risk of underfunding for the long-term future. Because all of those discrepancies between what we budget for and therefore what we collect taxes for versus what we underspend, the more we cut those out, that margin, the less we have in fund balance at the end of the year to put into the capital reserves. And it was painful for us as a council, and I think for voters, to go out to bond for the new piece of fire equipment that we needed to last year, because that was not funded through capital reserves. But Freeport is in an amazingly low debt service position because those capital reserves are funded so well. And we don't want to be in a position where we're going to bond more and more often. So it is a difficult decision. Because there's a lot of these questions are, what do we pay now versus what do we pay later?
Right.
So I also appreciate Jessica, you're really putting a fine point on what the staff is not getting out of this budget. So while we are not cutting staff positions, except for some that are vacant, there are reductions while trying to keep the same service level. But it does beg the question of when and at what point we do need to reduce service levels if we cannot find a way to make further savings. But I also know that no matter what we cut for service levels, that is going to be an impact on residents, and on some more than others, depending on what that service is.
Yeah. I also, clearly, we didn't anticipate or plan for a reduction in revenue sharing from the state. That was a curveball, which drastically impacts our bottom line. I also just want to clarify that we did decrease a position,
Yes.
just to make sure, we validate that experience as well. So.
Can I chime in again? To be clear, I don't think any of us are happy with an average 9-point-something% increase over the last 3 or 4 years. We can't continue to do that. That's why our Finance Committee is going to be looking hard at how do we do this long term. Adding 10 people over 5 years feels excessive to me as well. So this is not my favorite budget. I'm not thrilled with it. We need to do better. There is some light at the end of the tunnel in the sense that growth can help, because as we bring in 100 units of housing downtown and more on the horizon and more development and more stores coming to town, that growth means that we might have potential for more revenue in the future. Our budgets are set annually, so this budget only goes for 1 year. So there's an opportunity over the course of that year to say, what do we want to change in the following year? If our revenues are going up, do we want to add things back? Are there other areas that we want to cut instead of the ones that we chose to cut this year? So this is not a forever budget, it's a 1-year budget. And I believe that Freeport is growing and there's some potential to rethink how we're addressing our services in town. And I would encourage the continued participation. So instead of just at the budget hearing at the end of the year, advocate for what you want to see in the budget throughout the year so that we have that information up front. So fingers crossed that next year will be better than this year.
Yeah, I will say, this is only my 3rd budget season with the town, but this is the one out of the 3 that's kept me up the most. So I definitely feel that, and I think about my own future in the town as well. We all live here, and we want to make sure that it's affordable for us as well. Great. With that, Councilor Brown?
I guess I have to say, after thinking a lot about the library and its role in the town and some of the changes that I anticipate in the coming decade, the position, a half a position that costs $20,000 seems like a good investment. And I guess I agree. I do agree with Councilor Lawrence that bringing that back is a part of the building that's taken place in the library for years. And the library is no longer just a repository for books. It's a place ultimately where people can go when it gets very hot. Now, we're not quite there yet. Is that true? We're not quite there yet, but that's part of the... So it's a safe environment that I think needs to be supported, and I think it's good value for your money, frankly. So I feel pretty strongly about that.
So I guess my question then would be, is there interest in the council of adding that back in? Yeah. Do we need an official motion, or is this a consensus? So make sure we do it right.
I would say ultimately, you are giving us direction as to what you want to appear on your orders for the next council meeting. I don't know that that is formal council action, because you really don't take formal council action until you adopt the budget.
Our vote on the budget would be us approving what's
Yeah.
in the budget
But
or not.
I will tell you that especially with payroll, that's very, very difficult to do on the fly, because sometimes those positions hit multiple accounts. So if that's something you want to change, it would be great for us to know that now as opposed to on the 16th.
We'll do a straw poll if folks are interested in adding the library position back in. All right, that was easy. Okay. Is that the direction you need? All right, so just to be clear, that means we are adding the library position back into the budget. Thank you.
But I also think we can make it kind of neutral to add outside assistance, or at least that.
I will say that was my thought on the 19th, was that we lowered it by that amount to make it net even. So when we lowered it, how much did we lower it? It was by 27, 30? Yeah, which covers the library position and then some.
Right.
Yeah.
But that was a reduction to help us balance. We got red lights back here, and they all flash.
They
when we
yell
don't
at us
put
when we
our-
don't have our mics on.
But that was a reduction to help us do what we're doing here. I did not see it as a transfer, because we didn't. This would be an actual, okay, let's reduce it another $20,000 so we could have this position.
Yep.
And that way it makes it a neutral add.
Right.
And I think one that's more important than the outside agency help.
I will say I'm comfortable with it, calling it a neutral ad based on the reduction we did during the 19th meeting, but I welcome input from other counselors if there's an appetite to have that conversation now or not.
I agree that we've cut that more than I was comfortable with to begin with, but I thought that was an appropriate compromise. And I think, as we've heard here today, part of the issue that a lot of residents are dealing with is rising costs in all kinds of ways that we are seeing those agencies are seeing increased need presenting, particularly FCS, but I'm sure that is going out to other regional agencies as well. So I don't think that cutting those further is the way to try to balance the budget, given the negligible impact that would have, in my opinion, given what those services provide when we invest in them.
I think one of the standards of value is leverage. How can we, as a town, leverage our dollar? And if there are outside agencies that are, clearly FCS is one of those.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, clearly the library is too. So that will be our future.
So are you in support of keeping it where it's at right now?
I think, yes.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Pilch or Councillor Sparta, do you have any thoughts on the community support?
So many thoughts. I think we've done a great job working together and trying to build consensus on this. And I totally hear what Chip is saying here. And I'm wondering if there isn't a place where we can reduce it a little bit, maybe not 20,000, but reduce it a little bit to move things in the direction that Chip is more comfortable with. And I would be I am a huge fan of library. I have many fond memories in that building. And it is a great place right now. It's really one of the centers of
else is saying, there's tremendous need out there. But you and I have talked about this many times, that I have a strong history of giving in my family, and that's always been really important. At the same time, we need to honor the fact that people are going to lose homes. So, like, increase by 20, knock off by 5. Everybody breathes a little bit deeper.
We do, but we're still.
Bars open till 8.
The issue for me is, it's not the nonprofits, but it's the fact that town is giving to the nonprofits, is taking tax money that should be used to pay for town services, and the libraries are town services that we are mandated to pay for. We already give to Freeport Community Services. We have a contract with them that we give them a lot of money, and so, that's one of the things that came up. The other services, although are needed, I think people need to be able to have their money so they're not getting put out of the house. And when we give money away, it's us deciding what it is, not individual constituents that are deciding which money they're going to give to a particular organization, which is where I think it should be.
Would you entertain sort of leaving it where it's at, as we know we are pursuing a conversation about long-term planning starting in July? Since we already cut off almost 30,000.
Well, when I first joined this, we didn't have that fund. There wasn't a fund. So we've ballooned it up, and now we're having problems with the budget going up too much. So this is one that I think we can retract, because we did not have it at one point. So.
One reason for a possible slight reduction is that it actually, it defines our intent for the future. It's sort of token on one hand, but on the other hand, it also gives the services that we've been helping out an understanding of the future.
Yeah.
That has to be
And
tighter than it has been.
Yeah. And I personally feel the reduction we made on the 19th shows that. Councilor Pilch.
Yeah, just to clarify, my saying that I don't have much to say about it tonight only reflects that we had a pretty vigorous and lengthy discussion about this last time it came up. And there were various different numbers thrown around. Do we cut it by this amount or this amount or this amount? And we tried to cut it further, but we couldn't get consensus to cut further, so we wound up cutting it pretty significantly, and we still haven't decided how that is going to wind up getting spent. But the places on this list are places that, in some cases, if these organizations went away, the cost to the town would be so much greater. So we give something like $1,750 to Oasis Free Clinics, who provide free medical care for people that can't afford their own medical care. So if those people then came to the town seeking general assistance, I guarantee that the medical bill for the dozens of people who use that in Freeport is probably going to be much, much greater than $1,750. So there's a number of organizations on that. I believe there is room to cut, and I believe when we get to figuring out where we're going to take that $27,000 from, those are going to be hard decisions already. And I know Councilor Pillsbury felt strongly about this as well. I know he can't be here tonight. So anyway, I had different thoughts about how much to cut and where we could cut further, but I'm comfortable where it is because of the discussion we had last time.
Yeah, and I think it's always important to kind of revisit. I know we did have a robust conversation. We tend to, especially about this topic. I'm always in favor of revisiting as we go through the process, and also agree that that was a very fruitful conversation. And so with that, I guess, we'll do another straw poll of, if you're comfortable leaving it where it is right now and discussing later. That's where I feel I am. And by later, I mean, we leave it with the current reduction of the 27 that we already made, and we already know this is on our docket for the process we're entering in July.
After the budget.
Correct. So if you're comfortable with that process, raise your hand, I guess.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, and that's 4. Thank you. Yeah, is there anything else to revisit or discuss? Again, we have a target adoption of June 16th, so now would be the time. Anything else you need, Jessica?
As far as what to provide for you guys for adoption, no.
Okay, great, thank you.
You're welcome.
And thank you all for being here tonight as well. All right, we're going to move on to item 75-26. So this is to nominate a town councilor to serve on the Maine Municipal Association's Legislative Policy Committee. Our fans. You have this as me, but I would love it if you introduced this one.
So we are members of Maine Municipal Association. One of the services that they provide is advocacy with various legislative initiatives, both state and federal. In order to do that, there is a 70-member legislative policy committee, so it's 2 individuals from each of the 35 senatorial districts. We share a district, and historically, Freeport and Brunswick are the 2 that would have representation in this particular, and we share. Brunswick also gets their own because of their population size. So generally, whoever we nominate tends to get the votes to be on the LPC. In the past, this has been a staff position. That termed out. I spoke with the staff member. In my experience, this usually is either the manager or a counselor as the lead. Given my workload, which I've talked with council about, I would much prefer to stay as an alternate, which means I still have access to listen to the meetings and provide input, but I wouldn't have to make every single meeting. It can be a team approach as long as one of a counselor or I are at each of the meetings or answer each of the surveys. Only one gets counted anyway, so it could be something that we teamed up on. I feel pretty strongly that when you're thinking about legislature, it makes sense to have an elected viewpoint and an operational viewpoint as the team working on this. So I know you have a lot on your plate, like tons, but I was hoping that one person would be so interested and willing to serve.
So I think it's Councilor Pillsbury. I'm just kidding. I will say, and I think there was something you mentioned about it's in person, and it has to be in person, which is a huge barrier.
So,
yeah.
So I will say that one of the advocacy moves that would be my first thing I would want to do is to push for, they will do hybrid meetings already, so I did check into that. But I think we should push for all remote so that everybody has the same participation ability. It is during the legislative season, as you lead up to it, there is usually a meeting a month. Throughout the season, right now, it's pretty dormant and will stay dormant up until the legislative session begins at the new year. January, I think. I think cloture is November, December-ish. So this is where a meeting, they have subcommittee groups. I've never participated on one, so I usually just come in for the afternoon session, which is usually 2 to 3 hours. And you go through all of the legislation and you decide what Maine Municipal Association's position is going to be, what comments we think are important. I will say one of the things I think is important is that we hold the line on what the municipal voice should be used for, which I think is a common argument that we get into in those meetings. But it's kind of refreshing. You get to hear what matters to municipal leaders across the state, which is kind of good. And then in between, there will be surveys. The surveys can range from the pre-session survey is usually quite lengthy, takes me 35 to 40 minutes to do. During session, it can be a simple, here's the bill summary, here's the click to the actual proposed legislation. Do you agree or do you not agree? So it could take 3 minutes if you know about it, and maybe 5 or 6 if you need to read it. So I would, there is time involved. I will say, if somebody is not planning to serve the next term of council, this would probably not be a good appointment to take on, because you cannot maintain it after you're off council. You have to be a appointed or elected official. So,
If nobody leaps up to volunteer, would the staff person be willing and maybe eager to do it again, or was the staff person just as happy to give it up?
I think, given some shifts of capacity in order to not ask for more people, I don't think this can go back to the staff person. I think that the plate is really full. If council didn't do it, it's probably something I would look to share with Caroline, which we're both busy. But, I mean, it's still, I do like that elected operation kind of, because this is going to surprise you. We look at things differently.
It does seem like in a perfect world, it is a policy committee. You would have policymaker input.
When do they need the decision by, or when's the nomination due?
So we have to nominate by the 4th.
July.
July 4th.
No.
June.
4th.
Oh, so that's
Thursday.
quite truly now.
So I will even go one better. I would even go if people were interested but concerned about the time commitment. I have no problem doing remote meetings and trying to catch people up if they can't come. I'm willing to, I just can't take it all on right now.
I can do it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that was one of the best.
All right, so Councilor Brown, could you read the be ordered? And you can put my name in there.
You said yes.
Yeah, yes.
Me? I'll do it, yep.
Be it ordered that. Oops, thank you. Be it ordered that Joanna Benoit be nominated to serve on the Maine Municipal Association Legislative Policy Committee for the term July 2026 to June 2028.
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Many blessings.
With gratitude.
You're going to get full, half-hour report backs.
Expect PowerPoint presentations.
Yes, PowerPoint and all.
Video.
Between Sophie and I will have choreography. All right, moving on to our public comment period, part 2, for folks who are virtual. All right, so we will go ahead and move on. We will switch our other business, starting with the discussion of a potential short-term loan for United for Childcare, because we have guests in the audience and we can get them home. So Brett, take it away.
Thanks very much. Brett Richardson, Development Director with the Town of Freeport. We're lucky to have Rebecca Helferson and Josh Waxman from United Way and United for Childcare, as well as Paul Johnson from the Greater Portland Council of Governments. This is a continuation of a discussion that we had at the last meeting about opportunities to support an important sort of infrastructure service in town. Childcare is a huge burden for folks and a barrier for folks who want to enter the workforce but are unable to find that childcare. And so United Way has stood up a nonprofit with a lot of support from the local business community, from the region, and we've worked with them to help secure a community development block grant for $308,000, I think it was. And as they've developed a pretty complex business model out at 2 Stonewood Drive, they're more or less ready to go to open the facility and meet a critical need in the community, but they have a gap financing need. So we talked last time about the best practices of a municipality being a lender of last resort, the type of due diligence that you would go through, the type of underwriting, and the way that you would approach this type of gap financing. We identified a funding source that is set up through a development program in the Concord Gully TIF. So there's available funds there that have been identified for this type of support as eligible use. And we're here tonight to hear a little bit more from United Way about their model, where they're at. Paul Johnson's joined us to help give some context for how GPCOG looks at these type of arrangements. And we also have in the packet all the background detail and some additional details about what the terms would be. So we have conceptually thought about a 2-year loan, 3% interest only for the first year. Principal payments would commence in year 2. And then in addition to that, we've talked about the opportunity to reserve some childcare slots for the town and for the RSU. We have confirmed with the RSU through Superintendent Tom Gray that this type of service in Freeport would be a huge support and a huge opportunity. And for the RSU, they have upcoming needs to provide care for 3- and 4-year-olds through a new state statute. And while they may be able to stand that up in-house, there could be some significant capacity issues that make a credentialed quality operator like United Way is working with a real valuable partner to the RSU. So we want to continue the discussion. And since we've talked about some of the best practices, we talked about some of the arrangements, we want to give you a chance to hear directly from United Way, as well as hear from Paul about how this fits into the typical review process and how this compares to other type of loans like this. So with that, we'll turn it over to Rebecca and Josh, and they can give us a little bit of an overview. Thanks very much.
Yeah, but I need the data.
Oh, okay.
I think Tom's.
Yeah, I'm working on it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I have 2 toddlers myself, so this is vacation for me, so we can actually, the budget conversation was riveting.
Careful what you wish for. You can go a long time.
You bumped me up.
Whoa.
You should run for council.
Yeah, I know, right? I can maybe get started and speak through some of the data just to, hopefully it comes up because there's a picture of my son on the first slide, which wins the hearts. Yeah. And so I want to talk to you just a little bit about, so my name is Rebecca Alfredson. I'm Senior Director of Programs at United Way of Southern Lead. And I want to be a Freeport resident after all of your thoughtful conversation today. It was really cool to hear. Thank you for having us. So I'm going to give a little bit of data on this project that I've been working on for the past 3 years. And please feel free to stop me if you have any questions. So during the pandemic, what we saw was a real change
employers in the Southern Maine area. And what we learned from that is that in 2 week span, we heard from about 2,000 families and kind of grew over time. But in that period, the folks who filled out that survey who said they had 2 adults in their household, one of which was not working, that actually came out to about 300 families. Of those 300 families, 85% of them said if it wasn't for the cost of childcare, both adults would be working. And so it's really underpinned the kind of workforce behind the workforce element of this, which brought together some real public-private partnerships for us to be able to launch United for Childcare. And just to kind of underscore what we're losing here, if we're focused on primarily infant and toddler care, which is the hardest kind of care to find, speaking as someone who recently had a couple of infants, we lose over $400 million annually as a state because of the lack of that care. And so that's just wanted to ground you in a little bit of the data about the impetus for creating this solution. And so United for Childcare is a, yeah.
Can we click up there?
Oh.
Can we go to the next slide?
Sorry. Oh, yeah, there you go. I'm a recovering teacher, so I just think I'm in control up here. I'm really not. And so if we, there we go. United for Childcare, the underpinning kind of model here is that it takes corporate engagement to be able to support and subsidize the care. And so we look at employers and we say, what can you offer to the solution? It may look different. So we have 2 centers currently underway, the one in South Portland and then the one in Freeport. They each look a little bit different about what an employer is able to offer to make the model work. So for example, in South Portland, we have an in-kind contribution for the building. So there's a corporate entity that is Maine Health. They are paying the rent on that building in order to reserve a certain subset of slots for their employees to have first right of refusal, which they're able to say, use that as a recruitment tool to get the talent that they need into a certain area. And so as you can imagine, that center launched in April, and we are on track to be fully enrolled in the next month or so. So we have no shortage of demand for filling the slots. United for Childcare is based on the model that we need care for our high-quality surgeons. We need to attract the talent that we need to the greater, to our Southern Maine area, but we also need to make sure that we have affordable childcare for those people who might be the janitorial staff who are also working those. And so we need those children in the same childcare center receiving the same high-quality care. And that's really what underpins United for Childcare. It looks different and creative based on the needs of the employer to reach that solution. So in South Portland, within the next 3 years, our goal is to be able to offer second and third shift care, overnight care for those employees, because that is what the employers are telling us they need. In Freeport, it looks a little bit different. What we have heard, as you can imagine, the real cornerstone employers that I think they're all outlined in the packet for you, but LL Bean has been a core supporter, as well as Maine Beer Company and Zachow Construction, who really made a game-changing contribution to fit up the space to make this possible. So, I mean, walking through the space, it is a state-of-the-art child care center, which is phenomenal. And so what those employers are really telling us they need is access to infant and toddler care. So we've set aside a disproportionate number of rooms to provide that care. The reason why infant and toddler care is really hard to find is because it is the most expensive care to offer. For every 4 infants, you need 1 full-time staff person. And it makes it really, really hard. So you're not making, not to sound too business model-y, but you're not making any money on those rooms. You only are really making your margin or being able to pay your staff because of the 3 to 4-year-olds that you enroll. And so we've had to be really creative, and these corporate partners are stepping up to make some game-changing contributions to allow us to say, this model is sustainable and works with that. And so that's kind of the revenue model that the capital stack we've tried to create to make sure that these centers are sustainable. Anything to add so far?
You're killing it.
Okay, great.
No, it's nice to meet you all. Thanks for having us. I work with Becca. I'm Senior Vice President for Community Impact at United Way. We're just grateful to be here. And Becca's been on this for 2 years and trying to get over the finish line. Just happy to be alongside her tonight.
Okay, so I think I talked about all this, but there's the one last thing I wanted to hit home. As someone who has 2 little kids at home, when I sent my son Henry to childcare, within the first year, so he started going when he was 8 weeks old, he had 6 different teachers. And the reason for that is because childcare centers are operating in such a thin margin that they cannot offer the pay that it takes. You can make more money working at Target and get access to benefits. And so we tried to, with this model, say, with these various contributions, we would like to be able to offer things like pay parity, to increase partnerships with the school districts, to have access to comprehensive benefits package, maybe to give people vacations, right? Things like that. And also, this is one of my favorite statistics, but in the first 4 to 5 years of life, a child's brain is developing 80+%. And so having 6 different teachers kind of cycle through is not ideal. So this model is really underpinned on let's pay people what they deserve for doing such a really hard job, and make sure we keep them there, offer them opportunities to grow. And so that's how we've built this model and really what's underpinning it there. And so more of my children, just to win your hearts and minds, this is the the South Portland ribbon cutting. We really are very close to being on track to be able to do this in Freeport. We have the enrollment open, which is really exciting. As of today, I was speaking with the operators. We have 40 families who've already indicated their interest at varying levels, different age levels for the center. We have playground equipment ordered. We are just really super close, but as you can imagine, we are stacking grants with very specific uses to be able to get this project across the finish line. So as Brett mentioned, we have a phenomenal, the county stepping up with some community development block grant funds. It's really hard to actually spend those down because they're finite and you have to use them on equipment. And so there's only so much equipment that you can. And so the labor for the installation in some of these things has made it a little bit trickier to just put the few final touches, the things that we need for licensing to come and give us our stamp of approval and open our doors, things like the installation of a fence. And then, of course, some of the things outlined in the packet too. We made some really strategic choices and teed that up for the United for Child Care Board to put in an extra bathroom because, for example, if I'm a public pre-K classroom, you have to have a certain distance from that to your children, so you don't have to actually leave the room and walk them to the bathroom. We made that choice because we want to prioritize working with the school district, particularly as they prioritize care for 3 and 4-year-olds with specialized needs. We knew that was super important, and so we are prioritizing sustainability and long-term success of the program, but it has had some, of course, short-term costs that we know that we can overcome in the next couple of years, particularly because our grant pipeline has been really successful for this project, not only for charitable contributions from businesses, but from foundations, local foundations as well. For example, the Davis Family Foundation stepped up with a huge grant to get us where we are. So I would love to take you on a tour of the facility for those who haven't been there. We're so close. I can speak about this project all day long, but I will pause there. Questions?
The one thing that wasn't in your packet that we actually found out about, I think it was today or yesterday, was another grant in the pipeline. We submitted a letter of interest, got asked to apply as of today for another $120,000 or $150,000, which is a capital fit-up grant. So I would just emphasize we're here to answer any questions in utter transparency, but just know that this is sort of like a very active, what we think about, what we're working on. When we talk about this really being bridge financing, we fully hope and I think really expect that this is well under 2 years of a payback period. It just gives us a little bit of that breathing room to get the startup going, given the really complex capital stack that it takes to get childcare done in this state. And so thank you for hearing us out.
I had the opportunity to tour the facility with the Fit Up Grant Committee, and it is beautiful. So well done. And I just do want to call out that there are several local businesses that are supporting the project. Maybe your company, LL Bean, Zacco, to name a few. So.
Did the Fit Up Committee approve a grant?
Yes, we did. I'm looking at Brett. So we did. We approved a grant kind of pending this conversation here. So my understanding is if we don't pursue this, we would then fall back onto the Fit Up grant.
That was a discussion. I don't know if there was ever any.
Yeah, resolution. It was a fit for the program.
So if we do the loan, they might not need the grant? I'm confused. How does the Fit Up grant relate to the loan request?
I think the Fit Up grant would still be beneficial.
Okay.
I think I will say when we talked about this just with our board about the charitable contributions, because this is a loan and we'd be paying interest on it. It's not, it would establish a different kind of precedent. So our hope is that we'd still secure the grant because we could still use the funds candidly in the startup costs. Sure. And that would qualify for the reserve slots, both for the RSU or in whatever discussions go to, maybe it's municipal employees, whatever that looks like for that first right of refusal.
I will say it was an unusual conversation we had as a committee. I don't think I don't think there's a resolution unless you think there's something I'm
No, I
missing
mean,
here.
it was a really excited conversation about how inspired people were about the project and how we need to do more to help if we can. There was approval to do the grant. Then subsequently, the discussion happened about the loan. And then it was a discussion about, okay, if and then what. But what happened was there was a grant awarded, and then some consideration about what we did and if we did something more, would that impact the grant? But that was an open question, is how I remember it.
Got it. And why $11,000 and not $10,000?
It was careful allocation of resources. So there is about, for easy math, 14 grand left in the Downtown Vision grant funds that were set aside, a year or two ago. And where we landed was to support the pine cones with half of what was left of the momentum grant funds, shift half the momentum to match the 7 or 8 that was left in fit up to have an impactful grant for these guys.
And I'm remembering now that because it was over the ceiling, it would be a council
Correct.
item. Yeah.
Correct. So really, I think from an action standpoint, we would be looking for, speed is of the essence for these folks, and so we were looking for sort of clear direction to staff to, if there is an appetite to move forward, to develop the documents for the loan.
And to kind of go back on our conversation that we had when this was first brought to council, there was conversation of, is this like a good way to kind of test revolving loan funds for the town?
Do you want to hear from Paul about the underwriting?
Yes, that'd be great.
Sure.
Hi, everybody. Paul Johnson with GPCOG. Some context is I run the revolving loan fund for GPCOG, both the Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund as well as our Brownfields Revolving Loan Funds. I oversee about $12 million in funds. For our Economic Development Revolving Loan Fund, we have money with Driscoll Childcare, which is in Portland, Little Dolphin School, which is in Scarborough, and also Serendipity Creek, which is in Gray. So those are 3 child cares that we actually have money with, so I can speak to that. And then on the brownfield side of it, we've loaned to nonprofits. We have money with South Portland Housing Development Corporation, Portland Housing Authority, and Avesta Housing. So on the economic development side, we have money with daycares, and then on the brownfield side, we have money with nonprofits. So what I had offered to Brett was that we would just take this to my underwriter. We did not do a soup to nuts, something that I would bill for, but we did take all the previous underwriting from the South Portland location, and we also took what the information provided to us from United Way. I crafted a memo, which I think some version of my memo or close version of my memo is in your packet. What I had offered to Brett is GPCOG as part of members' services is we're perfectly willing to service the loan on your behalf, which means free of charge. We would essentially take the monthly payments, we would keep it for you, and then we would distribute those funds back on whatever schedule you guys wanted. We're agnostic to how we would do that. We could collect it for the entirety of the loan and then cut you one big check, or we could give you deposits every quarter. It's minimal work on our end, and we're happy to do that since you don't have the infrastructure, so to speak, to take on that part. So we'd like to take that off your hands. If it's something that you pursue, we'll take care of it, and we won't take a service fee for that, so to speak. I can say, as far as a couple just observations, is as far as daycares are concerned and or nonprofits, I think this is This is a very, very normal ask. It's not abnormal whatsoever. Everybody here knows that there's been overages in every single project. Frankly, we would have done it ourselves, but the amount of flexible money for nonprofits we have is I can't do it. The only money I have left is for private entities, so we can't do it. Otherwise, we just would have done it. So I just wanted to reference that part. I'd also note that frankly, as far as a loan to a nonprofit, although it doesn't seem like a lot, 3%, 2 years, interest only, it's kind of a pretty aggressive loan for a nonprofit. So for example, my brownfields loans for $500,000, $1 million are 1% to 2% over 5 years. So I would say that although a consumer or a member of the public might say, well, my car loan's 6%, my mortgage is, or 6%, what have you. For a loan to a nonprofit, this is, the town is actually, what is in your packet is pretty solid, so to speak, I think, considering that this could be funded different ways. So I'd highlight that. I know there was some kicking around of different ways we could structure the repayments. Brett and I just landed on, if you want the professionals to service the loan, if you want to communicate it to your public, it's best, if we want a security agreement and we want to do this appropriately, it's best to structure this like any other loan instead of getting, quote, cute with it. I think at the end of the day, it makes sense to structure it the way that you see it. And frankly, interest only for a year, that's, that to your taxpayers, you can say, hey, this is, 3% on 3% on 12,000, 120,000, so you're getting $3,600, right? Something like that, right? Right. So you are, you're collecting something, and GPCOG isn't taking an administrative fee on top of that. So I'm happy to answer any other specific questions, but that's where my role was. That's our experience. Nothing's unusual here. This type of bridge loan to a nonprofit. If this was my world, we would have finished this 3 months ago. I just literally don't have the funds. So, yeah.
Well, where does the funding come from? GPCOG's economic revolving loan fund. Where does
That's a great question. So the majority of our funds so we have a couple different pots. So at the state level, the state, which they haven't replenished for about 16 years, there's regional economic development revolving loan funds. And those are administered by FAME, so the Finance Authority of Maine. And that original seed money of, I think GPCOG might have got it 2 million 15, 16 years ago, that hasn't been replenished. So, and all that money's, this is a side note, but all our money has been revolved and out the door and revolved, and now I'm down to zero. So the majority of my money comes through that program. There was also a, quote, COVID era program called Grow Maine, which is essentially another revolving loan fund distributed through by FAME that we were fortunate enough to access about $2.5 million, and that's out the door as well. But the short answer is I deal with Finance Authority of Maine.
Both those are expected to come back to you.
Yep, exactly, yeah. So, yeah, to put it in perspective, to demonstrate, quote, the potential of it, I've been at GPCOG for a little over 4 years now, and we've got $6 million out on the street, which before my time, we had under $2 million on the street. So yeah, the revolving works, so to speak. We have some defederalized funds that we had the flexibility to go nonprofit. Those were just spoken for by the time this came up. Because normally what I would have done is gone to those defederalized funds with the flexibility. That's where my child care funds usually come from.
So I think what Brett was saying is sort of looking for guidance from council if this was something we would like to pursue and trial. I personally, I'm a big fan of revolving loan funds in general. It's in our TIF plan. I think this is a huge need, a no-brainer. I'm in support of it.
Yeah, I think this is something that we need to trial because this is something we've been trying to get going for 6 years. Just haven't had the impetus.
Yeah, and I think this is a great excuse to do it.
I just want to echo the obvious need for childcare, particularly in a town where we do have quite a lot of people who commute into this town to work. Many of those people commute into this town because they cannot afford to live here. and having childcare where you're commuting rather than rushing back to where you left your child 3 towns away is a huge opportunity. I've just one quick question, probably for Brett. Just in terms of the terms, it was really interesting for me to hear you talk about the contributions that businesses have made in order to support the project, but also the benefit that they get out of that is the reserved opportunity for their employees. I just wanted to clarify, Brett, where it says that there'd be slots reserved for the town and the RSU. Those are employees of the town and the RSU, not students in the RSU necessarily. I mean, because I know there's a future partnership potentially with the RSU. I just want to make sure we're talking about this is a different.
I think we included the RSU there to help them meet their service needs.
Yeah.
So I think we can leave that somewhat flexible for now, but I think the benefit, if we want to build a partnership with the RSU, is that if they had a need that the RSU needed to provide that service to a 3 or 4-year-old, that they could look to United Way to meet that need.
Yep. Okay. Thank you. And again, when we talk about the need for housing and the workforce housing and being able to have housing that our teachers and firefighters and police officers can afford to live here, childcare is another big component of that. And so those municipal employees and those RSU employees having access to that, I think, is really a great benefit that we could help secure.
The one last thing I think that sometimes we lose sight of, because this is such a compelling project, is it's also a job creator. We're talking about 18 to 20 jobs that are going to, as these folks alluded to, are going to pay frontline workers a living wage. This is a game changer for the industry that I've experienced in my own life, and so it's appreciate the support.
So I do hear support from the council, but I want to give an opportunity if there are any concerns otherwise moving forward.
No concerns. I don't think. None for me.
Okay, I think that's the direction we needed.
So we'll team up to develop some documents and bring that back on the 16th?
That sounds great.
Okay, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here.
Drive slowly home. Enjoy your free time.
Stop for an ice
Someone
cream.
said there's a restaurant open.
Yeah. All right, and Brett, don't go too far because now we're going to talk about on-street parking.
Shift PowerPoints.
Right, I'm going to go home.
Yeah. I told him 6:30. He was not thrilled.
You never know.
No, that's right. All right. So I won't, let's see. So high level, before we get into specifics, we'll go to PowerPoint in a minute, but we're, as Dan alluded to earlier, we're working hard to develop downtown with infill development. Parking is a key consideration that we need to keep in mind as we support that. And as part of the work plan 2.0, one of the work items was to identify areas in towns, particularly downtown, that we could convert underutilized space on street to on-street parking.
Do you want to send that to me?
I can. Yep. Sure. So that we're maximizing all our opportunities and we can maintain our parking supply while Tom, I created this a few minutes ago. I don't really have, hold on a second, let's take a minute. There's a new addition to this discussion too that is, we'll talk about. One second. Appreciate it. All right, so as we develop the downtown, we want to maintain our parking supply, and an opportunity to do that is with the on-street parking. There's some, for example, right outside the window here on Grove Street a couple years ago. It makes a big difference, right? And so we're looking at that. We don't have specific findings just yet, but Jessica Chadbourne's done a nice job. We're talking about, potentially anywhere from 40 to 70 spaces at a preliminary view. But in the near term, we have an opportunity to put some spaces on Mill Street that will address a critical need. We have projects on Depot Street. Access for businesses on Mill Street is a consideration. They're working hard, collaborating. We've met with them a couple of times. And they want to make sure that we're maintaining as much ease of access to their front door as we possibly can. And so Earl and I went over to Mill Street last week and looked at a space that I'll show you an image in a minute. You might all be aware of it. It's that yellow hashed mark. That's currently serving no real purpose. And so the idea would be to move quickly and to black that out, and then to add spaces that conform with our stall spatial requirements.
And this is the markup in our packet.
It is.
Yep.
There's one caveat to that, and that is that there's been further discussion on Mill Street, and some concerns that fencing for the project from Depot moving up Mill on the, I guess it'd be the south side of the street, that fencing is blocking access to that sidewalk. There's no real way to avoid that right now because we're, in a downtown environment, and the designs are to have the building facade right up to the sidewalk to create that street wall and that good street facade or streetscape. And so the reality is that we're probably going to need to live with that fencing and that sidewalk being inaccessible. So what we want to do is to telegraph more clearly for pedestrians coming up Mill Street that they should proceed up on the Village Station side, but the crosswalk in its current location would bring folks across directly into the fencing. And so what we'd like to do is the 6 parking spaces that are in the packet to sacrifice one in order to bring that crosswalk across in an intuitive spot that would essentially bring folks to the front door of the tea shop in the Mill Street. There still will be access from Main Street, 95% of the time, but we want to make sure that we're creating that throughway from Mill Street as well. And so talking with Earl, that's something that his team can pull off relatively soon, and I think it would be a nice, line of support for the businesses on Mill Street that they'll appreciate. So really the ask tonight is to make sure that everybody's comfortable. The next step would be to take these items to the Complete Streets Committee next Tuesday. This is in their purview, and just make sure that everybody there is comfortable. Earl's good with it. That would give Nate a chance to sign off on it as well, and the Complete Streets Committee a chance to review it and make sure that we're thinking about all the important things. That step likely wouldn't impact the timing of installation. It's more just a good opportunity to get feedback.
I just have a few detailed questions. I do appreciate looking at utilizing that space, which, as you say, is really not being utilized because it's painted out, so you cannot park there. As Caroline would remind us, as soon as we painted the stalls on many of the streets that allow for on-street parking, they were utilized a lot more. I've certainly noticed on Depot Street, with that lot being developed for the apartments, the Depot Street parking is very full with those painted stalls. I just have a couple questions about the crosswalk that you're talking about, because part of the challenge with Mill Street, with the incline, is that the sidewalk on the south side is, while the grade is probably not ADA compliant, just because that's the grade of the street, it does have the street cuts, and it does allow for people that are rolling go up and down the south side. That's not the case on the north side, which is really entirely steps, right down from Main Street, but also right along the front of Old Navy. There's really no way to get to that sidewalk without stairs. So for folks that are coming down the south side and then they're running
Down
into
from
that,
Main.
down from Main, and they're hitting that construction fence, to get them over to a usable sidewalk, right now that crosswalk where it is has a curb cut. If you're bringing the crosswalk over into what would have been that 6th parking space, you're hitting a curb. So would there be a temporary ramp built there in order to make that crosswalk to be able to get folks from the south side over to the north side in front of Village Station?
I think we had talked about potentially a tip down.
Yeah.
So you're flagged an important issue. We haven't completely worked it out yet. But the thought as well is that coming down the south side, essentially once you got to the edge of the project, the fence is going to be there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's an issue we need to address.
Right.
Regardless.
Yeah.
And that this might be even a better way to do it.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
I think so. I mean, I know this is something that, as you say, like just developed from your conversation with Earl, so I would just advocate for that to be worked out
Yep.
in terms of thinking about somebody who is coming down a sidewalk that looks like it's relatively accessible and then hitting that fence, and then what do they do?
I think it's a good trial. I see sort of like temporary parking there not infrequently anyway, as it is, with people who are dropping something off or doing some sort of work.
Yep.
So I think it's a great spot to try out.
When we do that, is there a time limit on that, or is it you can just park there all day? I mean,
No, that's a good question. I mean, my instinct would be, it'd be hard to enforce, right? So there's a reality of that component, but in terms of the signal that would be sent, we have a meeting with the businesses. I think it's scheduled for Thursday. If not, it'll be soon. I'd like to get a little input from them, but I would think a half an hour to an hour makes sense, personally, to turn it over, because there's adequate parking for folks who would walk there. What we're talking about, there's a couple, the tea shop, for example, you can go in there and get a cup of tea. The crepe shop, you can come and go, carry out with something. So if folks wanted to make their way there as part of a broader trip to Freeport, there's parking somewhat in vicinity that's pretty convenient. But if we really want to meet that need of a quick, I need a T-shirt, I'm going to pop in, facilitating that quick access, I think would fill a niche that otherwise wouldn't be met.
And, this does help alleviate some of the parking that, there was adjacent parking to these businesses that's now going to be housing. So it helps kind of alleviate that, that change. Great. Any concerns with moving this forward? Go ahead, Councilor Brown.
Do you know, sorry, go.
I used to park there on a regular basis, and now other people do.
Do you know who I am type of thing?
Councilor Brown, go ahead.
Can't do that. Do you know if parking is going to be policed this summer, as usual?
Typically is, yeah.
Yeah.
Typically is.
I used to have a battle. In the early days, grace was given rather freely from the police department. And people would park across the street from my business, and that changed. And all of a sudden, it was a $30 parking ticket. And it felt at the time, and I don't know what it is now, but it felt at the time that it was more punitive, as if slapping someone on the wrist as a child almost, as opposed to trying to change behavior. And I would just say, make sure there's enough time so that someone doesn't get into that, because people from away, I suppose they're used to Boston prices, so maybe it's cheap, but it was tough. The other question is, probably everyone here remembers the study, but is the garage fully utilized during the busiest times?
Not typically. I came here, from my experience anyway, we counted it regularly. I came here, I guess it was Black Friday a year or two ago. It was a Saturday. It was a Saturday before the holidays. And every single surface space in town was full. And I went in and counted the garage, and I think there was around 175 spaces that were available.
Well, these would be changing times, right this moment. And so I'm wondering if it makes sense to have an effort to really work at directing folks into a free parking garage.
Yeah, that's a great point. So this is one item.
Yeah.
But there's a broader discussion around signage, and I think the good news is the business community on that street is pretty well coordinated. We've got an open dialogue, and we're going to be bringing the development team in as well. So.
Well, I'm aware that the wayfaring project will happen eventually.
Right.
But summers are coming, and I'm just wondering if even a simple, thoughtful to traffic flow and so forth, signage might be instituted. I don't know. We do know the most busy times in the summer, so by that time.
Yeah, I think there's a discussion about signage all over in that area to make sure that the public, it's come up a few times that, it's a fair assumption that a lot of folks don't realize that garage is free. And so we need to work together to make sure that is clear.
And even working with the businesses.
Yeah.
To encourage that, because people are returning customers, and to work up a dialogue that says, oh, by the way,
right.
You park in the garage and there's no ticket even possible. So it's a thought.
So it's because we don't have enough signage that people aren't using that, or is there some other reason that people aren't using that garage?
I mean, have you been in there recently?
Well, I know, it's pretty dark. I mean, it doesn't feel inviting, like I'm going to leave my car in here. I mean,
agree.
that's the feeling I get every time I park it. And then it's hard, to have a truck. Getting in and out of the truck is tough.
Yeah, I don't think signage is by any means the only reason.
I mean, do we have any indication that it's not safe? Experientially?
Freeport, Maine.
Right, exactly. So I'm just saying, if there's no information that suggests it's not safe, then the signage ought to point out that it's a safe place to park your car. Right?
Except for the cars that are in there, right? Just left.
Brett, the reason this is temporary, I'm assuming, is that part of what streets there's parking on downtown is written out in the traffic and parking ordinance. And so there would need to be a change to the ordinance long-term?
Not for this one in particular.
Okay.
I think we want to trial it.
Okay.
I think there's an idea that it very well could stay. I don't see personally why it wouldn't, but I don't think we want to make that commitment just yet.
Sure.
Great.
Excellent. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We're done.
We're
Make a
done.
motion to adjourn?
Yes.
I have a complaint. My agenda says time of adjournment 8:25. It's 8:28 now.
Oh, geez.
But I'll second the motion. Second the motion.
All in favor?
Second it.
Aye.
You want to make sure that it's not
Just work on that later.
Yeah, that's fine.
That's okay.